Man, we are covering the state this evening because we've heard from a potential executive member. We bashed the judicial members, and next we're going to listen to the representative members. So at this time, I'd like to tell you about Bob Heaton. He was first elected to the Indiana House in 2010. He graduated from Indiana State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in 1980. In 1979, and I did not realize this, as a member of ISU's basketball team, Heaton, along with teammate Larry Bird, made it to the NCAA Final Four. That's why you have to look up to him. Heaton has been married to his wife Jane Ann for 27 years, and they have 2 children. Allison, 24, a pharmacist at Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, and Travis, 21, a student at Purdue University. Now let's grill the legislative group. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for allowing me to come here and speak tonight. I read the Spencer Evening World the other day, and it had in there that been married for 27 years, and my daughter's 24 and 21, but I think they got that information about 4 years ago, or 4 years ago, so been married going on 31 years now, and my daughter's 28, and she's back in Terre Haute with her husband, and 2 beautiful grandchildren, and all that. My son's 24, but anyway, it is what it is, so I need to update that with the paper or whoever. I just want to, first of all, I want to introduce Jim Baird, Representative Jim Baird, who's here tonight. Jim, as Sean Hannity would say, that Representative Baird is a great American, and he fought for our freedom, and he's a fine man. I really appreciate him a lot, and he's my role model, I think. Also, I invited Matt Ubelor up here tonight. He just texted me about an hour ago and said he's not going to be able to make it, but Matt is a state representative in District 62 to the south here. His new district is going to be just about all of Greene County except for where Jasonville is, and it's going to include parts of Monroe County and so forth. But Matt's a good friend of mine, got to know him real well this past winter. Even last year on the campaign trail, his path and my path crossed a couple times. But Matt was instrumental in that defunding the Planned Parenthood bill, okay? He was right in the middle of it. And he basically started that House Bill 1205. It's going to introduce that back in February, late February, and that's about the same time when the Democrats bolted over to Urbana for those 35.5 days. So, and how that came about, he got Scott Snyder over in the Senate to carry that bill towards the last part of the session, and that's how it got through. Okay, but Matt, he's talked to WGN. They interviewed him. I mean, it's made big time news, as you probably know. The Los Angeles Times and so forth had an article about it. But Matt, I wanted him to come up tonight, but he texted me and said he couldn't make it. But I think he'd be a good candidate for you, Laura, to have him back or get him up here in a month or two, because he could tell you all the ins and outs of it. But and that's a whole different thing, dealing with Planned Parenthood, Crisis Pregnancy Center. I've got information on that too. I don't want to ramble, but we can talk about that tonight if you want to. But anyway, it's something that, as Jim knows and I know, we did a lot of heavy lifting this past winter up there at the State House. And even when the Democrats were gone for all those days, it seemed like we were still busy doing things and learning and reading and going to this place or that place. I went to a charter school up there, and me and some other colleagues of mine, freshmen in the freshman class, and kind of find out exactly, okay, what is a charter school? A lot of people out here still don't know what a charter school is. I got a phone call this past Sunday, and a buddy of mine calls me up and says, Bob, and I don't want to mention names, but He said, I was at a wedding reception last Saturday night, and he said, so-and-so, who's a teacher at Terrell North, was telling me that the charter schools are private schools. And I got in an argument with him for about 20 minutes and told him that no, it's a public school. You know, charter schools are public schools. And these are people who are teaching our kids, and they're not getting the facts right. You know, there's 63 charter public schools in the state of Indiana. For a long time, there was about 10 years ago it started. We had one, and then it grew up to 63. But it serves over about 22,000 kids, and there's still a waiting list of more kids to get into those charter schools. The charter schools have been around for 20 years in this nation. Okay, and as I tell people, you know, here in Indiana, they've been around for 10 years, and they were started by a Democrat governor, a Democrat-led House. But you would have thought, and listen to some of these people out here, that they just started 8 months ago, and us evil conservative Republicans trying to do away with traditional public schools, and that's not the case at all. So, I thought I was going to be late here tonight. I was telling Nina and Dale coming in here that I was at an open house in Terre Haute. My wife is there at the open house. They're getting a new branch down the east side of Terre Haute, Terrell Savings Bank. And anyway, I was getting ready to leave, and a couple of teachers cornered me and talked to me for about 15 minutes. But anyway, as I tell them, God bless them. It's, you know, they do a good job. It's just that, you know, just like any profession, I'm in the insurance business. I've been at it about 31 years. I think I'm okay. Maybe I'm not the best insurance guy, but there's good insurance people, and there's some that maybe aren't as good. And whatever profession it is, whether it's a mechanic or teacher or whatever it happens to be, you know. So the point is, if you're not a good insurance guy and you're working for an insurance company, guess what? In a few weeks, you're going to be out the door because you just can't make the cut, so to speak. And the problem is, in some cases, if teachers not very good, to my opinion, they ought to not teach. You know, I remember when Allison was going to school 22 years ago or whatever it was, there in the first grade at Meadows on the east side of town. Meadows School is just right behind Rural King on the east side. But she, my wife, Jane Ann, you know, got a couple calls from a couple of neighborhood friends of hers, Nancy Brettlinger and Ann Scheidler, and they said, now, Jane Ann, be sure that Allison doesn't get teacher so-and-so, you know, in school, because it's not very good. We want to make sure she gets this teacher, that teacher. And, well, okay, we made sure that Allison got this other teacher, not this teacher, you know. So, and I've heard that kind of story for many years. Now the problem is, why is that teacher still there? Now some kids are going to get that teacher, and that's the unfortunate thing. Last week I talked to an insurance guy in Terre Haute. He's Mike. His name is Mike, and he's got a couple of kids, 2 girls, 2nd grade, 5th grade. I mean, they're at the school. I'm not going to name the school, but 2nd grade teacher that his little 2nd grader is going to. Fabulous teacher this past year. Fantastic. He thinks, you know, she ought to get paid twice as much as she's getting paid. But anyway, fantastic teacher. Well, his little daughter that's a 5th grader, that teacher's not a very good teacher. And I said, well, Mike, how do you know she's not a good teacher? He said, well, Bob, my daughter told me after 2 months. You know, his 5th grade daughter knows well enough, you know, that teacher's not doing a very good job. And if you think about that, that's very, very sad. I'm not here to bash teachers. I'm just saying there's a lot of good ones out there. And as I told them back in March in front of as Jim and I was there at the public library in Terre Haute, we had about 500, you know, demonstrating and all that. And it was, as I said, Jim agrees with me, you know, God bless them. You know, I really appreciate them, and I appreciate their, you know, energy and so forth, but, you know, but again, I appreciate their devotion. And this one teacher a while ago was telling me, you know, been teaching for 34 years and so on and so forth, but, As I told Gail, I said, well, thank you for teaching for 34 years. And, you know, she teaches down in Sullivan County and she lives in Terre Haute. But anyway, nothing against that. But Tony Bennett, they don't like him up there, and he kind of tells it like it is and says some things that maybe he shouldn't, you know. But anyway, he's frustrated some of those people. But we tried to do a lot this past year at the state.